So in this demo, we look at real-time identification of failed industrial sensors, right? So this solution is built on GCP and Yugabyte. So in this scenario, what we have is we simulate 5 factories. Each factory has multiple sections, right? So it has 6 sections. Each section will have multiple sensors. There are 6 types of sensors we have defined. Total devices that we are going to simulate are 150. Approximately 150. The number can vary between 145 to 150 because it is randomly generated. The telemetry from all the devices is sent at 5 seconds, right? So for example, if we generate 150 devices, we will send 150 records every 5 seconds, right, to the system. Now the identification is done when the last event is received, and for 20 seconds if we do not receive anything from the sensor, then that sensor will be marked as failed. So that's the first thing. If the sensor sends the data after that, that sensor will be then marked as an active, right? So system will identify the status of the sensor, whether it is active or failed in real time. So this is how we do it. We capture all the telemetry from the sensors in the PubSub, right? And from the PubSub, it goes to the data flow. Data flow does 3 things for us, right? So one, it sends the data to the Yugabyte on the YSQL side. Then it identifies the status of the sensor, whether it is active or failed. And once it has identified that, it will send that status to the YSQL side of Yugabyte. We have Grafana dashboard connected to YSQL, which will for a real-time reporting. Right now, how this is done is explained here. So let's say when the event comes in, right? So each device is sending events at every 5 seconds, or in your case, it may be, let's say, X is the interval. Whenever the device sends an event, that events will create a timer. Now the timer is supposed to create an event which will say that the device has failed, right? So when the first event comes in, we set a timer with a 20-second timeout to say that this particular device has failed. But if the next event from the same device comes in, it will move that timer window out into the future, right, by that delta. So that means as long as we keep on receiving the events, the timer will keep on shifting, right? It will never go off. But once the device events stop, which means the device is either failed or there is some other problem, the timer will go off and mark that particular device as failed, right? So this is the solution. Another thing which we get out of this is that the existence of timer means that the device is active, right? If the timer is not there because the timer has gone off, that means the device has failed. But if the timer is still existing in the system, that means the device is active, right? So we use this particular concept to identify whether the device is active or failed. So now we will kick start the generator. Right. So this is the dashboard at the moment. There is no device, nothing has failed, right? So this is an empty dashboard. And before we start a generator, I'll just show you the data flow job, which I have already started. So this job takes about about 10 minutes to stabilize, right? So that's why I started it before. But right now it's not doing anything, right? It is just waiting for the streaming data to arrive. So first thing it does is it reads the data from the PubSub. Then it does 2 things. One is it sends the raw data to Yugabyte. This is the YSQL leg of our processing. Then it goes ahead and tries to identify the status of the device, right? So it is a multi-stage activity, right? You first create a key value pair here, and then you set the timer for those devices. Now once the device identifies the status is sent to 2 stages. One is sent to the logging, another is sent to the Yugabyte for real-time reporting, and this is where our Grafana is connected. So we will now go ahead and kickstart the generator. All right. So now this generator will kickstart, will create the devices at random, and then it will start sending the data at 5000 milliseconds, right? So every 5 seconds it will send the data for those devices. So this will take about a minute. So I'll pause the video and I'll come back. Okay, so the generator has started. It has created 149 records, right? So that means 149 devices it has created. Now at this point, if you see, I've already ran the queries before. We did not have any data on the YSQL, and that is the stage which will receive the data first, right? So we have data coming into the YSQL side now. If we wait for a few minutes, few of the sensors have already failed as well. The probability of sensor failing is set at 0.1%. Right, so we have 149 records on the YSQL side. Now why 149? Because it's a we have 149 devices and the status is set for all the devices, right? So this is what it is. We'll go to our dashboard now, right? So we have those two sensors which failed. So let me show you. These two sensors failed, right? 8319, 1927, 2589 is the latest one which has failed, and 3961 as well, right? So if it refreshes, it takes about 20 seconds. So we can see those previous two sensors here, and this dashboard refreshes every 10 seconds. So at least 2 refreshes before we see those other two. Right, so the third one has come, which is 2589. 2589 you can see on the screen here, right? So this is how this will continue, right? 3961, then we have 2589, 1987, and so on. All of these are coming in here. One thing I like to show you is, let's say we put some sensor back into the service. So let's pick this 1927, which we see here. So I'll put this sensor back into service, and I have a small back door into the generator. So we will do 1927, right? So we'll activate this one, which has ID of 146. 146. Right? So now 146 is activated. Unless this is marked failed again immediately, I should see this go away, right? So 1927, you can see that it goes away now, right? It's no longer there. So we mark the sensors as active almost immediately, but for the failures we wait for 20 seconds in this case, but we can reduce it to 15 seconds if we want to. But since the dashboard is set to refresh every 10 seconds, I mean, I thought 2 refreshes are okay, right? So the last one to fail is 4751 was the last one. We should see it over here as well. 4751 is the last one. Now, other thing that you can see on this dashboard is what types of sensors are failing. So smoke sensors have failed, the maximum. We can also look at per factory analytics, right? So for example, factory 2 has nothing, right? So there is no failure on factory 2 so far. But if we look at, let's say, factory 5, there are 2 sensors, and factory 5 has 2 sensors failed, and both are in section C of that factory, right? If we look at factory 4, right? So factory 4 has two sensors again, but one is in section A, one is in section B. And if you want to look at particular details of any sensor, when it happened, that those details are in here as well.